My third labor and delivery was completely pain-free, so fast and so easy. I really want to share this story with you guys. I hope this story can encourage some of you, inspire some of you, and maybe give some of you guys a new perspective on birth, just like it had for me. I have 4 kids and one of them still on the inside. My first, I went through labor at home and then delivered him in hospital. My second, I had a home birth, and that was a really hard labor. And my third was the one that was completely pain-free and absolutely amazing. I will do another video at some point going into a little bit more detail on how I just prepared myself to have such an amazing labor and delivery. To be honest, there wasn't a whole lot to it, but there is quite a bit of advice that I wish I had, at least with my first and my second, that would have brought me through, I'm sure, just as well as I had with my third. So a bit of background. When I got pregnant with my first, I was pretty terrified, I think, for most of the pregnancy. The only understanding or knowledge I had about pregnancy or birth were coming from all the horror stories that you get from everyone. Pregnancy sucks, it's so hard, labor is excruciating, delivery is horrible, blah 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 blah. I don't think I ever really heard one positive birth story until I think what happened is I came across a random YouTube video of someone talking about how they went through a supernatural labor and delivery. And I was like, what the heck is that? And her story was quite amazing. Oh, in the video, I remember she's like 8 or 9 months pregnant doing cartwheels on a beach or something like that. And I remember thinking, how is that even possible? So after watching her testimony, I specifically Googled or looked up what is supernatural childbirth. And there's not a whole lot you will find when you look this up. But one thing that did pop up was a book by Jackie Mize, and it's called Supernatural Childbirth. So I picked up that book right away, just because I wanted to get my hands on anything that would make childbirth easier or help me to understand it more. Now, during this time, I also became a doula, and I did meet some other women that had talked about having easier, more gentle births, which was really encouraging. But when I got this book in the mail, it is really the only thing that I consumed myself throughout the whole pregnancy. It's not a long book, and half of it is filled with testimonies of people who have read the book and have ended up with supernatural childbirths. So I read this book about 6 times during my pregnancy, and it gave me a lot more encouragement. Just knowing and understanding that birth can be safe, can be beautiful, can be easy, can even be completely painless. In my mind, again, the only perspective I had was that pregnancy and birth was supposed to be pretty horrific. But I knew somewhere in me that it didn't make 100% sense. Because if birth was supposed to be something that was totally normal, totally natural, why does it have to be something so horrific? Especially if it was something that we were created to do. I knew in my heart there had to be something more. The other thing that inspired me to look more into this is I had experienced healing for myself and delivery from pretty severe pain and illnesses throughout my life, that I just knew that God had to have some other freedom from this discomfort in labor. So I did continue to have a bit of fear throughout my pregnancy, my first pregnancy. I remember waking up in the middle of the night being just terrified of little things. Even though I had read the book and reading those testimonies gave me so much more encouragement, you still don't really know what you're going to encounter. I mean, birth, it's a huge thing. It's not like anyone preps you throughout your life. It's not like you get any previous experience before you get pregnant. It's like, boom, all of a sudden, there's a baby in your belly and now you have to go through this. So I really just let go. I took in all the knowledge that I had learned and I allowed myself to have peace through it. And I said, okay, you know what, God, I'm just going to trust you. Whatever happens, happens. Show me what you have. Just show me. I lay it out all for you to just grab hold of and lead me through this, lead me through the delivery. I won't go through the whole delivery process, but it was an incredible birth. It was 3.5 hours long. I wouldn't say pain-free because to me it felt like having mild period cramps, so it had that cramping. But going through it, I remember thinking, is this what it's supposed to feel like? Because it's not as painful as I thought. I remember having to convince my midwives to come over because I knew I was in labor, but they weren't convinced of it. I was able to talk through the entire labor and delivery. He came out a half hour of pushing and healthy, strong. It was beautiful. It was fantastic. It was a beautiful labor and delivery. I remember just being so amazed, so thankful, and so grateful to God for showing me what birth could be. I was shocked because I've never heard of anyone having a labor or a delivery like that. It went way beyond my expectations. Now, my second birth, that's a different story. In the long run, I am so grateful for what I went through with my second delivery. I got pregnant not too long after. My first two are 19 months apart, and I was super excited for the labor and delivery. To put it in a nutshell, I think I was way overconfident. And to be honest, I don't think I ever really prayed about the birth once throughout that pregnancy. I didn't read that supernatural childbirth book once. I didn't have any real form of encouragement or inspiration throughout that entire pregnancy. Also, I was still super busy with another little baby. So, life was still a little bit hectic. But in my mind, I was so sure that this delivery was going to be just as fantastic and easy as the first. Boy, was I wrong. I had a great pregnancy. Everything was fantastic. Healthy baby. So thankful to God for all of that. My babies have been so healthy. But come the end of my pregnancy with my second, he was posterior. So he was faced in the opposite direction of how he should have been. Sometimes this can cause a lot of discomfort in labor and for delivery. And boy, did it ever for me. So the midwives were pretty sure that he was going to turn at some point, especially when I went into labor. They were really hoping he was going to turn. And then they confirmed during labor that yes, he was posterior. My labor was 24 hours of hell. Honestly, it was the most excruciating thing I have ever been through. I am not trying to scare anybody. I have heard of some beautiful posterior births. This was just my personal experience, and it was just one of those bummers. I had him at home. I felt safe. I just had this peace, and I knew that nothing was seriously wrong or would seriously go wrong. So I knew in my mind that I had to get through it, that I needed to go through this process. But the entire time I was like, dear God, I'm just gonna go to the hospital and get a C-section because I just wanted him out. I couldn't believe how long it was taking. We tried every technique that we could think of just to try to get him either to turn or to get him out. He was still doing really well, so we just allowed myself to continue to labor, but it was active labor for a long time. The labor was really hard. The pushing was really short. Thank God. Thank you, Jesus. I think, literally, I think it was only maybe 10 minutes. I don't even know, but it was really short. But it was really painful. The pushing was still really painful. I had no tearing with my first or my second births, surprisingly somehow, and I have really large babies. So that I am also super grateful. And man, when he came out, what a relief. It was honestly the hardest thing I have ever been through in my entire life. I am so grateful there were no complications. I have a healthy baby. I am safe. I am healthy. I didn't have to go to the hospital. Nothing like that. I am beyond grateful. But it was hard. It was really hard. My husband and I love children. We think they are such a blessing. We are looking forward to more, and we are so beyond grateful for our kids. But after that birth, I looked at my husband and I said, I'm not doing this again. I said, nope, that's it. I am done. We are closing shop. Fast forward like 20 months later and I am pregnant again. Super excited and happy to be pregnant, to have a baby, and have another little baby to take care of. But as you can probably guess, I was utterly terrified through the entire pregnancy. Terrified. Now this is my third pregnancy, so this is the one that was my supernatural, pain-free birth. During my entire pregnancy, I kind of just shut down. I didn't really want to think about it because I think I was just so nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even want to think about the possibility of having another labor like my second. It wasn't until I think I was 6 or 7 months pregnant that I was listening to some song. What song was it? It was a Hillsong song. Even When It Hurts. Even When It Hurts? Is that what it's called? Even When It Hurts. And so I was listening to that song. God, does that ever hit your heart? And I just so happened to be thinking about that last labor during that song. How perfect was it? God just overwhelmed me in that moment, making me think about, if you are going through hell, whatever is going on in your life, I will still sit here and I will still praise you because you are still good and I still know that you are going to bring me through this. And he did. Even though that second labor was so hard, he brought me through it. He brought my baby through it. We are alive, well, and healthy, and I can now see the purpose in it. Even though it was so difficult, I now have something to share with others. I now have something in common with those who have gone through such difficult labors. I also now have something to compare my other labors to. I now know how difficult it really can be. So in that moment, God just showed me so much. And that is when I decided to start talking to God about this. And I just let everything out. After that second labor, I didn't really have any closure or any discussion with God about it, or I had bottled everything up because I was just so overwhelmed with what had happened. So in that moment with God, I just released everything. I spoke with him about everything. I spoke about my fears. I spoke about how upset I was feeling like he had failed me. And I also realized how much I myself did not depend on God through that labor or through that pregnancy. I was so excited just to see what God would do, or just hopes that I could just ride and relax my way through it, that everything would be okay, that I forgot to take care of my own mind, my own body, and my own faith. I forgot to allow God to be a part of my birth. That was the biggest mistake that I made. I think my overconfidence became a confidence in myself and that everything will be okay, even if I'm not acknowledging God through this. So back to this moment of me just talking and pouring myself out to God. I realized in that moment I had two choices. I could either be afraid, let go, and handle the pregnancy and the birth the same way I did the last time, or I could put everything I am and everything I have into God, into faith, and into trust that this is going to be okay. Because there was no gray area there for me. It was either black or white. I had one choice to make. The choice was obvious, but it was surprisingly hard. I still wanted to shrink back, grip onto my pillow, and just say, whatever comes, comes. But my heart knew what direction I had to take. So I jumped full force into my faith and into God. And I said I knew that this was going to be the most beautiful, most easy, pain-free delivery. I was going all out. I was saying if this is going to be a good birth, it's going to be a good birth. Now, my husband didn't tell me until later, but early on in my pregnancy, he also got a word from God telling him that it was going to be an amazing birth. And this was such an encouragement later on. I didn't do much to, prepare myself for this labor. I don't believe I read through that supernatural childbirth book at all. I didn't listen to anything really for inspiration or encouragement. I didn't talk to anybody about what the birth or the labor or delivery would be like or what I expected it to be like. And it was a little bit nerve-wracking in the way that my husband and I were going to be the only ones there. We had no one to watch our children, and now we have a 4-year-old and an almost 3-year-old to watch and somehow take care of during this labor and birth. But somehow we knew it would just work out. We knew that everything was going to go smoothly. We had this incredible peace that it was going to be perfect. I also had very specific things that I had asked God for this labor and delivery. So I asked him specifically that I would have a daytime delivery, my kids would be distracted, that the labor and the delivery would be super fast and super easy. I prayed it would be completely pain-free with no complications. Oh, and one other super cool specific thing I asked him for is I've always wanted a baby to be born in the caul, so I didn't want my water to break. I wanted the baby to be born in the sack. I just thought that would be super cool. So fast forward to the labor. I wake up in the morning with contractions that feel like Braxton Hicks. So I'm pretty positive that they're just Braxton Hicks contractions. I go downstairs and I start making breakfast with the kids. I'm going like all out breakfast. I'm not doing something simple. I'm making like homemade crepes from scratch and whipping all this fancy ice cream up and stuff. Meanwhile, I'm going through these contractions, and as I'm sitting there with my kids eating breakfast, and it was like 11 in the morning or something, I realized that these contractions are really steady and they're like right on time. I'm like, maybe just out of curiosity, I should write down the times of these contractions because they're not going away. Now, I'm not feeling anything. I have no discomfort, nothing. That's why I was so convinced that they're Braxton Hicks. So I remember grabbing some sticky notes somewhere. I still have them. I still have these sticky notes. They're so cute. And I'm just writing down the time, and I get through a couple of sticky notes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, they're getting longer, and they're steady. They're steady. So I call my midwife, and I'm talking to her. I'm like pretty darn positive that I'm in labor. I remember having no signs other than this, and that's why I was not sure if I was in labor or not. She actually told me to call her back if I was 100% sure. I was already pretty darn sure because I was kind of expecting this labor already to be amazing. So I did give it some time, and then the contractions did get harder. So I knew I was in labor. So I went up into my bedroom and I started playing some music, and I just lay down and I gave my midwife a call and I asked her, could you please just come check me? And she was still convinced I was not in labor, but she offered to come check because she lived close, which was nice. So she came over to check me, and I'm still in no pain, no discomfort, but the contractions are hard. When you get like really hard Braxton Hicks contractions. So she checks me and I am at 9 centimeters, and we're both pretty darn shocked. And this is when a bit of discomfort would start right at the beginning of the contraction. And now I knew it was going to be a beautiful, easy labor. I was confident in that. So if any bit of discomfort started, I said, okay, God, you know what? Take this. I'm giving it to you. And literally within seconds, it was gone. I could finish the entire contraction completely pain-free with no discomfort. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was such a fun experience. So I knew I needed my husband at this point because I knew the baby was coming soon. So I got my midwife to call my husband in, and he threw a movie on for the boys, and the boys just watched a movie the whole delivery. So my midwife recommends that maybe I try sitting up a bit, and that's when baby starts to come. He flew out in, I think, 6 pushes or so. The pushing stage was really hard, and in my mind, for some reason, I just thought, I have to get him out, I have to get him out, I have to get him out. Maybe because subconsciously I was thinking about my last labor. I'm not sure, I don't know what happened during that time. But the coolest part about it was that he came out in the sack. I did not get to see him in the sack because right as he came out, the water broke. But I remember the midwife said she's never seen it before and she thought it was the coolest thing ever. Like, what are the odds of that happening? I asked specifically for that. How cool is that? One thing I do remember God specifically telling me during my pregnancy was that I was going to have a joyful birth. And I didn't know what that was, but I remember going through labor and laughing and singing and talking. And I just remember it was really joyful. I was excited to go through it. I was shocked at how good it was. It was enjoyable. It was peaceful. And I knew that that baby was coming. I got to focus on how good and exciting it is, how exciting it will be when that baby is in my arms, rather than focusing so much on the discomfort or what I was going through in that labor. It was just such a peaceful experience, and I've never felt closer to God. I've never felt his heart so much. And that labor just really, really solidified in my heart what God intends for labor and delivery. That these supernatural births aren't just supernatural, but they are something that is meant to be normal. We have added so much fear into pregnancy and delivery that we have taken so much away from what God has created it to be. And it is totally meant to be this beautiful, peaceful, incredible experience. And saying that is in no way diminishing how hard it is for some women to go through this. But it is meant to shine light on something that we're missing, something that every woman has access to. I am excited and hopeful to see more and more stories like this come out because we need more inspiration. We need to change the whole way that we talk and view birth. I am super excited and hopeful to see what this next delivery is going to be like for me, and I'm sure I will update everyone with a video of how everything went. Thank you for taking the time to watch and listen to this video. I hope it gave you some inspiration or encouragement if you are pregnant, if you know someone that's pregnant, if you have gone through pregnancy, just to remember that God is there, that there's a whole other side to birth and delivery that you may not have heard about yet. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. I'll have a lot of other birth videos coming up, and I have a lot of other videos that talk about cooking, talk about children, talk about homeschooling. So if you enjoy any of that, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.